All right, so I'm just gonna be doing like a voiceover with no specific video in mind, but sorry for the aspect ratio issue. I don't even care about that, but and the reason I don't care about that is because this video topic is so important. I was supposed to make another video which I have planned, but this topic is so important. I thought about making it like ASAP, like right now. Anyways, the advice that I'm going to talk in this video is so important that if you implement this advice, and I'm a literal, I know I uh like begin every single video by saying, I mean, this is the most important advice that you've ever heard, but honestly, it is. And it's so important that whenever, like when you hear the perspective and you implement it, I mean, you implement this in your training regimen, it's gonna literally like change your whole perspective when it comes to everything. And I mean it like mind muscle connection, how you build muscle, the tempo, all of that stuff. Like literally it's gonna change your life. And the way it's gonna change your life is that if you're a man like hearing this video or like watching this video, it's gonna make you like so much more muscle that the opposite gender is gonna be like so much more attracted to you. And if you're a woman, watching this video, it's gonna be something like you're gonna make so much more muscle. I don't know what kind of man would be into that. Woman with too much muscle. But anyways, jokes apart, the advice that I wanted to talk about is that, and I'm gonna say this one line. Make sure to hear this message really carefully, and I mean really carefully. The more amount of joints that you involved in an exercise, the more load gets distributed, uh, like in that exercise. Like, let me repeat it. The more amount of joints that you involve in performing an exercise, the more amount of weight or load gets distributed, right? And I'll tell you why it's not ideal. For example, when you do side laterals, right? Let's say you're doing side laterals. When you're doing side laterals, just imagine or like assume that you don't have the arm, like your forearm, like you don't have down from your forearm to your wrist. I know, like, it's kind of um counterintuitive if I'm saying that you're obviously holding your weight with your wrist, but even if you're holding the weight with your wrist, try to imagine that you don't have your arm down your elbow, right? Like you only have up until your elbow. You don't have a wrist, you don't have a forearm. You're just holding the weight for the sake of holding your weight with the palm, right? Like like your fingers and palm, you're just holding the weight for the sake of holding the weight. The reason I say this is that if you involve the wrist joint, if you involve the elbow joint, if you involve the shoulder joint, the more amount of joints that you involve, the load is being distributed that many times, right? For example, when you're doing side laterals, your shoulder joint and your elbow joint are the only two joints that should be involved. If you're trying to also include your wrist joint, right, the weight will be distributed to your wrist too, and you wouldn't feel much of a weight in your shoulder, right? It's like obviously, your shoulder joint is going to be involved because you're hitting shoulders like side laterals. But just imagine that you don't have like a forearm or a wrist or finger or anything. You're just holding the weight for the sake of holding the weight, and you just lift the weight like the dumbbell, the entire weight with your elbow, right? And obviously, if you're trying to like include your elbow, indirectly it's going to include your shoulder. Like obviously, like your shoulder joint is going to work no matter what. I mean, no matter how much your elbow joint is involved. But if you try to include your wrist joint, then the weight is going to be distributed in your wrist and in your forearm and in your fingers. That's why whenever you include too many joints in performing an exercise, I mean, in this particular example, side laterals, you don't feel much of that weight in your shoulder rather than you feel that in your wrist, in your forearm, right? And the reason for that is exactly what I just explained. You're including too many joints in performing an exercise. What you should do is, like I said, absolutely disregard that you have a forearm. You just holding the weight for the sake of holding the weight, and just lift the weight with your elbow, right? Like it doesn't even matter if the weight is down, like from the level your elbow is at. Just try to include, just try to like lift your elbow, right? And as soon as you do that, you'll feel that your shoulder joint is also being like involved, and you'll feel like all of the weight, like literally all of that 15 kg dumbbell that you're using, or like, I know, like 12.5 kg dumbbell that you're using if you're weak as fuck. But if you're like using any kind of dumbbell, you're gonna feel all the weight in your shoulder. I hope you're trying to, I hope you're like understanding what I'm trying to say. Let me give you like another example. Dumbbell curl, incline dumbbell curl, right? Your form should be like this video, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I'll try to include a video of me dumbbell curling, like incline dumbbell curling. But anyways, I better get over with this advice, otherwise the video is gonna be over. Anyways, so dumbbell curl, right? Your shoulders should be back, your chest should be up, and your arms should be away from your body. That's the only way you're gonna only be involving your elbow joint, which is the bicep, right? Don't include your wrist. You know how like those times where you include your wrist and you feel the pump in your forearm rather than feeling the pump in your bicep, right? It's because you dumbass, you included the wrist joint, right? You included the wrist joint in performing the exercise, and because you like included the wrist joint in performing the exercise, much of the weight was carried by the forearm instead of your bicep. So shoulders back, keep your wrist, I mean, doesn't matter how you keep your wrist, just keep your wrist like in that position throughout the exercise, right? And only work with your elbow joint, right? Up and down, as in this video. And you're gonna feel the weight only in your bicep. I hope you understand how much life changing this advice is, because if you truly understand this, from now on, you're going to be number one, forming an exercise with a slower range of motion so that you're careful enough to not include the other joints, right? And you're going to be having amazing mind muscle connection, since you're not including many joints, you're only including joints you're targeting to. You're going to be only including the muscles that you're targeting to. And yeah, like I mean, needless to say that mind muscle connection would be easier now. But yeah, that's all for this video, and that's really what I wanted to say. Don't include many joints in performing the exercise that you're performing. Only include the joints that you absolutely cannot help but include. For shoulders, include only shoulder joints. Only for side laterals, obviously include the elbow and the like the shoulder joints. If you're performing a chest exercise, right, a chest, don't include the shoulder joints. Only move the weight with your arm, like your elbow up and down, right? And yep, that's all the advice that I need to say. And I hope you understand. If you don't, like, don't be shy to ask away any questions in the comment section. I'm gonna make a video about it, obviously, you guys. Yeah, anyways, peace out.